If you follow the winding river that flows from the lakes, cutting through the dense pine forests of the rift, you'll eventually find a settlement that feels almost out of time. Mist clings to the rooftops, and the mountains loom so closely that daylight seems hesitant to linger. This is Ivarstead, a place that sits uneasily between the living and the dead. For most travellers, Ivarstead is little more than a waypoint, a brief rest before attempting the perilous ascent to High Hrothgar, the monastery of the Greybeards. Pilgrims stop here, gather supplies, and whisper their prayers before vanishing into the mountain fog. Few ever return. Yet, to those who call it home, Ivarstead is not merely remote. It is haunted. Haunted not just by ghosts and whispers, but by isolation, superstition, and a collective dread that something ancient watches from the peaks above. This is the story of Ivarstead, the most haunted and most isolated town in all of Skyrim, where the air itself seems to hold its breath. To understand Ivarstead, one must first understand its geography. It lies at the very edge of the rift, a valley of deep forests and jagged cliffs, cut off from the major trade routes. The only reliable path is a narrow bridge over the White River, leading to the steep 7,000 steps, the Pilgrim's Trail to High Hrothgar. This isolation shapes everything. Supplies from Riften arrive only occasionally. News from the wider world comes even less often. And as night falls, the sound of the river becomes a kind of warning. The only voice reminding travellers that beyond this point, they are leaving safety behind. The people of Ivarstead have learned to live quietly. They work, they fish, they farm, and they keep to themselves. But beneath that calm lies tension, the unspoken understanding that the town's peace is fragile. Because in Ivarstead, the world feels thinner, as if the barrier between life and death has worn away with time. Every town in Skyrim has its legends, but few are as deeply ingrained as those of Shroudhearth Barrow, the ancient Nordic tomb that looms just beyond Ivarstead's borders. For generations, the townsfolk have feared it. Strange lights flicker within the night. Echoing footsteps are heard when no one dares approach. Travellers have vanished near its entrance. At the heart of the story is Wendalius, a Dunmer adventurer who came to Ivarstead seeking treasure. When he disappeared into the Barrow, the locals assumed he was killed by the restless dead. But in truth, he remained inside for months, slowly descending into madness. He smeared himself with glowing dust, pretending to be a ghost to scare others away, until he died alone, lost to delusion. When the Dragonborn uncovers this secret, the town is both relieved and disturbed. The haunting was fake, but the terror it caused was real. And even after his death, the Barrow's darkness lingers. A reminder that not all ghosts are supernatural. Some are born from loneliness, greed, and fear. To the people of Ivarstead, the Barrow is both a warning and a reflection. It is what happens when isolation turns inward, and when sanity itself begins to erode in the shadows. Ivarstead's proximity to the throat of the world gives it an atmosphere unlike any other settlement in Skyrim. The mountain is both majestic and oppressive, an eternal presence that dominates the skyline. To outsiders, it's a place of pilgrimage. To locals, it's a constant reminder of danger. Avalanches, rock slides, and strange noises echoing from the heights are part of the daily life. Some say they've heard the distant roar of dragons, though the townsfolk learned long ago not to speak of such things. There's also the spiritual weight of the mountain. The Greybeards live at its summit, masters of the Thu'um, the voice. But they are so rarely seen that to most Nords, they are closer to myth than men. Their shouts shake the heavens, and when they call the Dragonborn to High Hrothgar, even the ground in Ivarstead trembles. Imagine living beneath that, beneath the literal voices of gods echoing down the slopes. For the townspeople, each shout is both awe-inspiring and terrifying, a reminder that they live at the crossroads of mortal and divine. Despite its haunting reputation, Ivarstead is not abandoned. Its residents endure with quiet resilience, bound by necessity and habit. There's Willem, the innkeeper of the inn, who greets every traveller with cautious warmth, but never truly smiles. He tells stories of the barrow and warns adventurers not to go poking around it, not because he believes in ghosts, but because too many have vanished already. There's Fastrid, a young woman torn between her love for an outsider and the expectations of her parents. Her small story mirrors Ivarstead itself, a place caught between leaving and staying, between fear and freedom. And then there's Klimek, the humble fisherman who braves the path up the mountain to deliver supplies to the Greybeards. His faith and dedication mark him as one of the few in Ivarstead who finds purpose in danger. To him, the mountain isn't a threat, it's a calling. Together, these figures form the fragile heart of Ivarstead. They are not warriors or heroes, but survivors. Ordinary people living beneath extraordinary weight. What makes Ivarstead so haunted is not merely its ghosts, but its silence. Every sound carries weight here. The creak of a door, the whisper of wind through the trees, the splash of water against the dock. Each one feels like a warning. People speak in hushed tones, and when night falls, the streets are practically empty. Fear has become a kind of ritual. The townsfolk maintain it as carefully as they maintain their crops and nets. It binds them together, keeps them cautious, and keeps them alive. But it also isolates them further. Few outsiders stay long. Merchants avoid the area, even pilgrims hurry through, eager to reach the safety of the Greybeards monastery. And so Ivarstead exists in a perpetual twilight, neither thriving nor dying, suspended in superstition. Then again, Ivarstead's fear is intertwined with faith. The people here live closer to the gods than any other town in Skyrim, and yet they still feel utterly abandoned by them. The Greybeards above are silent monks, detached from mortal affairs. The divines seem distant. The Daedra lurk in whispered warnings. To fill that void, the townsfolk turn to folklore. They speak of cursed spirits in the barrow, or frost trolls watching from the cliffs, of shadows that follow travellers from the mountain trail. It doesn't matter whether these tales are true. In Ivarstead, belief is survival. Fear keeps people careful, and in a place where help is days away, superstition can save lives. Still, there's tragedy in that faith. The people revere the Greybeards as if they were gods, yet the monks never descend to bless them, never offer comfort. The mountain's silence becomes divine indifference, and the people below must find meaning in the echo. What truly makes Ivarstead haunted is not the dead, it's the memory of those who left. The path to High Hrothgar claims countless pilgrims every year. They begin their climb full of hope, seeking enlightenment from the Greybeards, but most never return. Their families sometimes linger in Ivarstead, waiting for news that never comes. Their absence becomes a kind of haunting, a reminder of how easily life slips away on the mountain. When you speak to the townsfolk, their voices carry the weight of those disappearances. They do not speak of the lost by name. They simply say, the mountain took them. And perhaps that's the most chilling truth, that in Ivarstead the mountain is not just a landmark. It is a graveyard, a god, and a ghost all in one. At first glance, Ivarstead appears peaceful. The river flows calmly, the inn is warm, and the people are polite. But beneath the surface, there's a constant tension, a sense that the peace could shatter at any moment. Every person in Ivarstead lives with quiet dread of the mountain, dread of the barrow, dread of being forgotten. And in many ways, they already have been. The Jarl of Riften barely acknowledges them. The Thalmor patrols never come this far. Even the dragons that plague Skyrim rarely bother. Perhaps that's the cruelest irony. Ivarstead is so isolated that even danger forgets it. And yet, its people still never feel safe. It is a town haunted not by spirits, but by the absence of everything else. Speaking again, there are few places in Skyrim more geographically and emotionally isolated than Ivarstead. surrounded by cliffs far from major trade roads and overshadowed by the throat of the world. It is a town perpetually on the edge, too small to matter politically, too remote to grow. When the civil war rages across Skyrim, Ivarstead remains untouched. Armies do not march here, banners do not fly, but this peace is deceptive. Cut off from both the Empire and the Stormcloaks, the town survives by ignoring the world beyond its river. That neglect creates its own kind of haunting. There are only a few soldiers here. There's only a few memories, whispers of things lost, dreams of places the people will never see. Isolation is its own ghost, and in Ivarstead, it walks among the living. Every sound in Ivarstead seems to echo from the mountain. The river's current, the wind that sighs through the pine trees, the faint, distant rumbling of thunder high above. But the one sound the people never hear is a human voice. The greybeards, the monks who live in the seclusion at High Hrothgar, are worshipped by the people of Skyrim as holy men, paragons of wisdom who speak in the ancient tongue of the voice. And yet, for all their divine reputation, they are silent. They do not descend to speak with the people who live in their shadow. They offer no blessings, no guidance, not even acknowledgement. For the people of Ivarstead, that silence has become something almost unbearable. The monks are close enough to see, their monastery visible on clear days, clinging to the cliff, but still utterly unreachable. Pilgrims climb towards them, vanishing into the mist, while those left below can only wonder what waits at the top. That distance, both physical and spiritual, shapes Ivarstead's identity. It is a town caught between worship and abandonment, revering gods who never answer, hearing divine echoes but never words. The people look to the summit and find not salvation, but silence. And perhaps that is what truly haunts Ivarstead, not the ghosts of Shroud Hearth Barrow, not the isolation of the mountains, but the knowledge that enlightenment is so close and yet forever out of reach. In Skyrim, dragons shout with fire, and heroes roar their destiny into the heavens. But Ivarstead, there is only the whisper of the river and the silence of the gods who no longer speak. It is not just the most haunted town in Skyrim, it is also the most forgotten by heaven itself. When the Dragonborn finally climbs the 7,000 steps and leaves Ivarstead behind, they might glance back only once. The river glitters faintly, the roofs are dusted with snow, the smoke from the inn's chimney rises into the cold sky, fading into the clouds that wrap the mountain. From afar, Ivarstead looks peaceful, almost beautiful, but those who've stayed there know better. Beneath that beauty lies unease, history, and silence. In a land torn by dragons, gods, and war, Ivarstead's horror is quieter, but no less real. It is the horror of waiting, of isolation, of knowing that even the bravest souls vanish when they climb too high. The town endures not because it is strong, but because it has learned to live with its ghosts. And in that endurance, there is something almost sacred. Because in Skyrim, where every hero eventually becomes a legend or a corpse, Ivarstead remains the town that watches from the foot of the mountain, forever haunted, forever afraid, and forever alive.